Yes, yes. And I noticed on doing my research on YouTube and stuff, I noticed that you've been in a lot of strange hotel rooms doing interviews.
Yeah, I have been. You're right.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, especially when I think it was Canterlot Gardens.
Hmm.
There were a number of strange hotel rooms. That was yeah. I was in hotel rooms for that.
Interesting. So I wanted to kind of start off something interesting though, and
Oh,
talking about the interest in acting, I
mhm.
wanted to see, like where do you think that interest came from? Like, were there movies that you saw as a kid, or cartoons you saw, or some television shows that inspired you to want to be an actress?
I was just really always a ham bone, and a bit of a performer, growing up as a kid. When I was, I believe, I forget if it was kindergarten. I'm pretty sure it was kindergarten. We had a performance, and we were supposed to do a Hawaiian dance of the hukilau. And everybody else kind of forgot the dance, my fellow classmates, and I was very annoyed with them. And I knew the hukilau very well. And so I kind of, followed the teacher and really kind of took the lead in the hukilau. Um, I remember that very distinctly. When I was in elementary school, I would do very strange. Somehow I would get, I don't know why the elementary school administration would let me do these things. I don't know whether it was just, because I was very convincing as a child, or whether they had nothing, they didn't know what to do as far as curriculum. They didn't have anything to entertain the children.
Hmm.
But I put on some sort of version of Annie at some point, and I'm sure it was dreadful because I just kind of threw. We were singing along with the record, and we didn't have a dog for Sandy, so there was just a girl playing Sandy the dog. We didn't have a bald man to play Daddy Warbucks. We didn't have sets or costumes. It was just an opportunity for me to once again be the star and play Annie. And so I would do things like that. It's just always been something I wanted to do. In junior high, I did plays. In high school, I was the lead in the musicals and in the just regular old plays. It was just something that I always wanted to do, and it was just and then my whole Jason Bateman movie. Jason
Hmm.
Bateman, I grew up in LA,
Hmm.
so around me, all these kids would go and become actors.
Sure.
So it was something, nowadays that happens even more because of, the Disney Channel and all of that stuff.
Hmm.
But with Jason doing that and lots of other kids did that. I really, really wanted to be a child actor, but my mom wouldn't. My mom wasn't into that,
Your
and
mom never beat you.
no, no. Well, my mom was a mathematician, and
Yeah.
she had to go to her job and teach.
Hmm.
Um, at, at Occidental College, where she was a professor. So she didn't have time to take me on auditions and things, and she also felt that if I wanted to be an actor, I needed to train as an actor. She was fine with me being an actor.
Hmm.
Both my parents were. My parents were very encouraging
Sure.
to with me being an actor, but they wanted me to get trained, and they wanted me to go to college, and then they encouraged me to go to graduate school. So they said that it's fine if you do that, but just get the proper training.
Right, right. Yeah, gotcha. And then, as an act, as having that training in acting, how does that you think help you as the writer on My Little Pony?
I think it helps a lot because I think initially it helped me as a playwright because I had read so many plays,
Hmm.
and so I worked on so many shows, and I was familiar with dialogue. So in writing dialogue, I was very comfortable with it. Um, I think also because I had been in so many plays and played so many roles, just playing with dialogue was something that was very natural for me. So being able to write it, and I hear characters' voices in my head very easily, and I think that my acting kind of played into that.
Okay, gotcha. And then, I mean, and does that help you find? It helps you find the voices of the characters too, right? In some respects.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with Pony to start out with,
Hmm.
all of us were, kind of trying to figure things out, and you know, it's always hard when you're starting a show to figure out what exactly the characters are going to sound like. And thankfully, Lauren was guiding us very well. Um, but and once we were able to hear the characters, once the show started airing, it was a huge difference because
Sure.
oh my gosh, okay, now I really get it. And when Lauren was casting the voices, she would try and play us stuff. Um, but a lot of that was just kind of uh, jumping in and leap of faith and going off of what Lauren had written and just kind of saying, okay, I'm going to go for it and see what I get. And but she had written a lot of the character descriptions were so strong that that we had a lot to go off of.
Sure. Yeah, and so I've heard you talk about like the process of creating the show, but what's the process for you in terms of writing? So I mean, how does your brain function to come up with dialogue and with situations for the show?
I mean, the situations are often given to us, and you go and you have a story meeting, and you really figure out the story in that story meeting. So you have all of that in there, so that when you have to sit down and actually write the script, you've already written an outline, so you have all of that mapped out, which is fantastic. It's not like you sit down and write a script and you have nothing to go off of, and it's just sitting down and go and try and write 33 pages from nothing.
Hmm.
It's you've already done a ton of homework because you've had a meeting, you've written an outline, you've done all of that stuff, and then getting to write the dialogue is just kind of icing on the cake,
Sure.
because now you get to have them banter and talk, and just you're filling in the world because you know what's happening. It's a matter of now you get to have the characters live and breathe within that world. And for me, it's always a bit daunting starting a script, and I always freak myself out, mainly for no good reason.
Hmm.
But I think it's just the fear of, will I get it done in time? Will it be good? Am I going to come up with something that's funny?
Sure.
All that stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so I just kind of parcel things out to make it accomplishable, doable, so that I don't you know totally freeze and freak myself out too much.
Right.
uh, I just, I say, okay, I'm going to do the teaser. And if I get the teaser done, which is only 3 pages, and I go, okay, Amy, you can write 3 pages. That's not too tough.
Hmm.
And then once I'm done with those 3 pages, I go, oh, well, now it's only 7 more pages. And then you're done with act one. And I go, okay, well, that's not too bad. And, you just kind of roll from there.
And are you your most harshest critic?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. I go back and I go, oh, is that funny enough? And then, I'll often have characters say things and things that I think are very amusing, but they don't forward the story, and I have to go through and cut things. But I'm definitely my harshest critic. Is this funny enough? Is this, really as good as it can be?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, have you ever found yourself, perhaps unconsciously, even like favoring characters over another one when you're writing?
There are certain ones that are easier for me to
Hmm.
write. So yeah, as far as that goes, um, there are ones that are obviously more, I wouldn't say aggressive, but Fluttershy doesn't necessarily speak up a lot.
Hmm.
So if there's a scene and all 6 of the ponies are in there, it's easy for Fluttershy to kind of get lost, in there.
Hmm.
And for Rainbow Dash is certainly going to put her 2 cents in before Fluttershy will. Um, and so but to make sure that all of the ponies are represented, I think is very important, and that they do have each have a voice.
Sure.
um, And Pinkie Pie, is always
Hmm.
easy for me because she's silly and she can always throw in the random comment and lighten the mood
Sure.
or, that kind of thing.
And
Um, yeah.
when you're writing the characters, do you ever do you ever find yourself interjecting some of your own personality into them?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Especially with Pinkie Pie and Applejack,
Hmm.
I find that.
Okay.
Um, because with Pinkie Pie, um, I, I am just in my life, I'm a very silly, goofy person, and I think very silly things. And so with Pinkie Pie, I get to truly express that because I think, kind of in normal life, I try to control that and not be as silly as I might be, as my brain wants to be. And so Pinkie gets to be that, and Applejack gets to express kind of my strange countryisms. Not that I'm from the country in any way, but I come up with corny sayings,
Sure. Hmm.
and so she gets to express that side of me. So that's fun.
Gotcha. And then what about you mentioned the silly side of you, and so what about what about the songs on the show that you've done?
Mm-hmm.
So what's your process personally for writing, the ditties, and then, you know, putting those, figuring out who's going to sing those, etc. How does that whole thing work for you?
I mean, we usually figure out in the story meeting, we decide that there's going to be a song.
Hmm.
So, for instance, in A Friend Indeed, we knew that Pinkie Pie in that first act was going to have a big song, and it was going to, it was a very important song. It had to be about that she likes to make every pony smile, and so that was going to be this big thing. And that song was different for me in that with many songs, I choose an existing tune and base my song off of that. With that song, I couldn't really find something, but I
Hmm.
knew I wanted it to be kind of like Walking on Sunshine
Hmm.
or It's a Sunshine Day from the Brady Bunch.
Right.
Um, and I actually ended up coming up with my own tune for it. And so um, I really actually struggle with songs, but I love struggling with them
Hmm.
because I find a lot of joy in writing them, but it's not a natural, easy skill for me. I don't consider myself necessarily a songwriter, even though I do write songs, but
Hmm.
it's not like, oh yeah, I'm going to go off and write a song. It's something I work painfully hard at. Um, so I spent, a long time working on that.
Sure.
Um,
What's what?
and then,
Go
mhm.
ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, and then with the ditties, then Pinky got to sing a bunch of other little things in there.
Hmm.
And fortunately, because Rob Renzetti came up with calling Cranky Donkey, having his middle name be Doodle, that just automatically opened up, using Yankee Doodle Dandy and